Welcome to the Mycelium Network podcast, a podcast all about early stage web developers and the mentors and teachers that help them along the way. Hey Leo, and welcome to the Mycelium Network podcast.
Hi, how's it going? Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's going well. So I think I'm going to just get us off to the races, as they say. So please tell us more about yourself, your background, how you came to do what you do, what gets you up in the morning, and then just this little side note that I found when I read up about you is if you can tell me, if this is possible, who are your favorite metal bands and or genres?
Okay. Oh, I see where you got that from. Okay. So I went to school for film and TV. That was a while ago, and I was doing that for some time. I ended up as an assistant editor for like documentaries and random Netflix shows here and there, and I decided that, all right, well, I don't really want to be an editor. I always wanted to do something computer science related. I always wanted to go into programming, but I never thought it was possible, given just for a lot of reasons. I thought it was either too expensive to do this switch or just too much time. And then I just decided, you know what, I have a lot of time these days. This was a couple of years ago, and there's a lot of time. I started teaching myself, and I never stopped. And I kind of slowly moved away from my old field and sunk more and more of my time into learning, programming, into coding, and then eventually building things and working on things and just trying to really, I don't know, to make it my like thing, make it my career, I guess. I'll metal bands. Yeah, I got a few. It like changes every year. I think these days it's like it's like what gets me, what motivates me during my workouts. I like Gojira. They're cool. Back in high school it was like Metallica. I think that's probably what got me into the genre to begin with. There is I don't know if you heard of Spirit Box. They're cool.
Yeah, love them.
Awesome.
Love them.
Awesome. Yeah. They're great. I think they're really awesome. I got back. I was into Rammstein for a bit, and then I got out of it, and then I got back into it, and then kind of losing interest again. I don't know. I try to listen to a lot of different things, but I also stick to I do stick to what I like, and that's that's all I have to say for that.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I mean, I like the same music, so it was really cool when I read that. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
and I know all the bands that you mentioned. I've also have a love-hate relationship with Rammstein. I never know how I feel about them, but I recently discovered like all these female-led metal bands that is just amazing. Like one of the other ones that I really like is Ginger, the folks from Ukraine. Yeah. They're awesome. And just the musicianship in that band is outstanding. And Gojira is, of course, they're awesome. So yeah, that's cool. I really like that. And yeah, it's one of the best music I use when I work. Like, it helps me to focus.
It helps you focus. It kind of sometimes it helps me. Sometimes it distracts me because I'm just so I don't know, absorbed into it. But I also remember a few times where I was listening to like heaviest matter in the universe, and I just fell asleep. I don't know why. So sometimes it's just calming. It's like so chaotic that it's calming.
I get that.
Yeah.
So, as I mentioned, I do with all my guests, I read up about people because I'm truly interested, and I want us to have a nice conversation. So I read your bio on your website, and I really liked this piece from that, which says, I'm fascinated by how vastly creative the world of programming is and the brilliant minds who leverage these tools and technologies to build new and exciting experiences for users and fellow hackers. So I have two questions about that one. So when you refer to programming being a vastly creative world, let's touch on that one first. What aspects of programming are you referring to? when you talk about creative?
I think if you feel like hearing it read back to me makes me feel like, oh man, I was trying to sound really smart there, wasn't I? um, I think what I meant, or like to put it in like really basic terms, is just I when I was like starting off and learning how everything worked, before I got into this, my understanding was just, oh yeah, you have languages that you use to interact with machines, and then that's it. Then there's just a back and forth like that. And then I kind of learned how, like, I guess it's like all the layers that are involved with this, and how pretty much everything is just an abstraction of something else, all the way down to like the signals and everything. I was really I guess I was really fascinated by how people came up with all these different ways to sort of make things easier to communicate with the computers, of course. And I think that it must have been when I was learning like Ruby on Rails or something, just learning about frameworks and seeing how, this someone made this specifically to do this and to do this thing easier. Someone made these things to make like websites easier and all that. And it must have taken a lot of work, but all that work is put into doing or creating these things, or making it easier to create these things better for other users. I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling, but I guess if that makes sense, then that's kind of what I meant by that.
Yeah, I get that. And the reason I asked that is because I think a lot of people, if they think about programming, they don't see it as a creative pursuit. But I think, because I think it maybe like what you thought initially, it is like you have these specific commands and then you type them in and then it's the computer like just executes the commands. But, it's all about problem solving in the end. And in order to solve a problem, you need to think creatively. Mm-hmm. So I think that is something that people sometimes forget about. And I think it's mostly people from outside or to just joining and just getting into programming. They kind of think all syntax, but it's not all syntax. There's a lot of problem solving involved. And like you said, like sometimes you want to make somebody else's life easier because it's like, why am I going to do this thing over and over again if I can just abstract all that away and give somebody an easy way to do this that's predictable and that I know works because it's been done a million times. And then the abstractions are also necessary so that because software is created by teams and in the open source world, communities. And so, if programming languages didn't exist the way they do, it'd be hard to communicate between humans about the code that we write. So I think that might be one of the reasons why we have all these abstractions away from, just the core bits and bytes, is so that there's something that's more human-like. That's why we have like code that is constantly being what they call syntactic sugar added on top. So it doesn't actually give you any new functionality, but it makes some aspect of writing the code more human-like in terms of a language. Mm-hmm. You can look at the function name and completely understand what it does. It's not like super cryptic that you have to figure it out. So I kind of think that's also a creative aspect of it.
Yeah, so it's classic work smart, not hard, right? And put into action over and over again. But it's definitely like it's like the driving philosophy behind so many decisions made, and I always try to live by that, and I think it's cool to see how it all played out over the years, and what we have today is a result of all that, and it's just really fascinating to me.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't used to be like this for sure. So my second question on that same topic, are there any people that you have found inspiring or from who you have gotten guidance as you've learned and you grow as a developer?
As I've learned, I feel like not so much inspired. I don't look to sort of like famous people or big names and feel inspired by them. I feel like they're so out of my league that it's like, oh yeah, I can't comprehend how their minds work. I feel like at my level, everyone is an inspiration in some way, and everyone can offer guidance. Because I guess I think as an example, when I was bird building my first few projects, I like to find similar projects with like things made with the same tools and stack, and kind of use it as, I guess, inspiration. I would look through it and see how they do things, how they set up, like, I don't know, how they set up their servers and routes and all that, or how they if it's like a React project, how do they organize their components and things like that. Just because that's not something that I know, and I assume that everybody who's made these knows a lot better than I do. So I feel like if I just jumped into a random GitHub repository and poked around, then I can learn something from it. So I think that's kind of like how I approach learning something new, is just seeing how someone else did it, someone who's probably more experienced than I am.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I like that. I don't know if you ever saw, like back in the day, Paul Irish, who is he's still at Google, I believe, and still on the Chrome team, and I think he's still a developer evangelist. He might be a manager now, but he made a video called 10 Things I Learned from jQuery. And that's back in the day when jQuery was still, the library that everybody was using. It's still used a lot, but it's not talked about as much. But that's a really interesting video, because he actually just recorded himself going through the jQuery source code and picking out specific bits of it and saying like, oh my goodness, so this is how they do. When you use this function, this is actually what's happening inside jQuery. And that tells me so much about the language. It was a super popular video back in the day, and for very good reason. I still think it's great to go back and watch that, just to see how somebody would learn from looking at somebody else's code. And then you learn about jQuery, but you learn about JavaScript, and you learn about the underlying language that drives the library.
That was like a popular thing that when I was learning, I basically followed like a bootcamp curriculum and kind of just went through it. But they like to, every once in a while, they like to make you recreate something and like make Redux on your own, and that way figuring out how to do it by yourself, or knowing the pieces that put it together, is definitely very helpful in not only knowing the thing you're making, whether it's, I think I also had to like make Ruby on Rails by myself, or like a really simple version of it. And yeah, it was helpful in knowing how it works. It was helpful in just mastering the base language used for it. And I think it's just something that there's like I think there's a website dedicated to this. I forgot the link, but there's a website that I noticed dedicated to like, here's a bunch of things, and here's a sort of tutorial on how you can recreate this. And it's just like another way to learn, but I think it's a very effective way to learn.
Yeah, and I agree. I think, actually, come to think of it, I do think there's like somebody that did a video on like create your own React, essentially, and like works through like how does useState work and how would you replicate useState and that kind of stuff. Really, really interesting. Yeah, I think it's a great way to learn. So on LinkedIn, you had a post there about your new portfolio website, and you asked for feedback. And so you did get some feedback there. And somebody pointed out some issues with the website and things like that. I'm always curious in those situations, because I've been on three sides of the coin, if you want to say it that way. So I've been the new person asking for feedback, getting feedback. I've been the person giving feedback. And I've also been the person that saw an interaction where somebody maybe new was like kind of, and I know it's scary when you like made something and you're new to an industry and you like put your work out there and you're like, what do you think of this? And for some people, it's really, they don't, because they're scared. Like people are going to point out all their mistakes, and then it's going to be like, oh my goodness, the imposter syndrome kicks in and all that stuff. So I'm curious, what is your experience from that interaction? Did you find it positive? And be completely honest about your experience around that.
When I put up I think there were a lot of things that scared me about just sending out or making a post about my portfolio, whatever. And one of them was definitely like, I don't think it's that good. I just kind of wanted to put something out there to, I guess, beef up my LinkedIn. That's always a strategy to do when you're looking for work. And another thing I was kind of worried about, and this is probably not something that most people would go through. It's because I like just recently switched to doing to like kind of recently committed completely to pursuing a career in programming, that I haven't actually like I didn't want to go around telling everybody like, hey, I don't do this anymore, but I do this. So a lot of my old coworkers and colleagues, they probably don't know about it, and I was a little worried that I would get someone messaging me and saying like, what? I thought you were doing this. What happened? What are you doing? Like, just questioning everything. And I didn't want to have that conversation because I didn't know how exactly to approach that. That actually didn't happen. That was just a worry. So there's definitely like things that kind of like I was nervous about putting it up, but I guess I just did anyway. Like I feel like I didn't have a choice. I felt like I needed to put myself out there, and when I did get the feedback from it, my first thought was, oh man, I'm not as good, and I'm not like, this really isn't that good, is it? But reading through it and looking at what the person had to say about everything, in the end, it was a huge benefit, because like trying to do this on my own is definitely like the one thing I'm lacking is collaboration and support, and I don't know if what I'm doing is right, and I don't know, like there are so many people, there's only so many people that I can ask, and I guess the best way to get feedback is just from complete strangers on LinkedIn. But it did, like, it revealed like a massive hole in my knowledge, and I guess it wasn't something that I considered before in the past, and I realized that I still had a lot to learn. So I wasn't necessarily like too proud of it, but I still felt like humbled by the interaction, I guess. Kind of like prevented me from getting too full of myself. But in the end, I still don't think that I definitely still have a lot to learn, and I think that it was just a sort of it was an experience that grounded me a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for being honest about it. I think it's going to help a lot of people, because it's not just you. I can promise you that. Yeah. There's a lot of people that go through these same thoughts and feelings, and we all constantly have new things to learn. This industry is not static, so things change constantly. So, I have a lot to learn. And I'm in the same boat oftentimes, because I don't write a ton of like React and Vue, so I jump between those two frameworks if I'm not just doing vanilla JavaScript. And yeah, I oftentimes wonder, like, I wonder if the code I'm writing is any good. It gets the job done and seems to be okay, it seems to be performing pretty well, and all that stuff, but I don't know if this is the best way to do it, and that kind of thing. And it is hard to find people that you can ask. So community is obviously key here, but you have to be part of a community for quite some time before you feel comfortable sharing the fact. And it's strange that it's like that, but it is, where you feel comfortable saying, I'm not sure if this thing I'm doing is right. Can you have a look? Because you're always scared of somebody coming and saying, ugh, that is horrible. You shouldn't be. I hope nobody paid for that. Like, well, actually, somebody did. Yeah, so that is something we all go through, and it gets better with time, but it's human nature, I guess.
Yeah. It reminds me of this when I was just scrolling through LinkedIn randomly one time. I saw someone made a post saying that another LinkedIn user made a post about like worst portfolios they've ever seen, and included this guy's portfolio in it, and that was just like why would you do that? That's so rude. And I completely like I feel like if that happened to me, then I would just lose all motivation to share anything. It kind of like ruins the whole collaborativeness, or like I'm not necessarily a big fan of social media to begin with, but I do think it has its benefits as far as, especially in this case, you share something, you get some feedback, you learn something, and everyone benefits from it because you, like, as the poster, I benefit from seeing the things that I did wrong, and anyone who looks at the conversation can see like, oh, that's what you're supposed to do. Okay, let me make sure that I do this also from now on, and getting eyes on those eyes on good feedback is a plus, whereas kind of like I don't see any benefit in bashing someone else's work. I guess other than, I don't know, you get likes because you're controversial. I don't know.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that is what is amplified. I'm not a fan of that stuff at all. Like if you have constructive feedback, you can give constructive feedback, but making a list and saying this is just horrible from your perspective, it's like it doesn't help anyone in the end of the day. So I don't know what the benefit is of that. It is all probably about, like you said, it's just about likes. Yeah, it's unfortunate. And again, this is something that it's not unique to programming. Like, it's everywhere. I think designers obviously see this a lot, where somebody's like taking somebody's design apart and showing why it's terrible. And it's like, come on. Yeah, it's not the best way to go about it. It's not how we're going to build a healthy ecosystem for people. And it's a thing, but that's a problem. It's a problem in tech, and it's because of things like this. So yeah, thanks for highlighting that. I think it's important for people to hear. So I really, really liked how you talked about how you built the billiards game that you have on GitHub. And in the README, you posted like this 7 days, like on day 1, day 2, stuff like that. Because in the very, very first episode of this podcast, I spoke to Riku Smith. You were like, this lives down the street from me. And
okay.
It was one of the things that I encouraged him to do, and that I encourage everybody to do on the podcast, is as you're learning, right throughout your career, but especially when you're learning, write about how you went about doing this. Like, how did you think through it? What is the problems you ran into? How did you work around them? How did you solve them? So when I saw that, I was like, we need to talk about it. So without me going on about it, I really love that. And I'd love for you to just like talk through it. Like, even if you just like talk through the README and what you put in there, I think is really good.
I forgot about this README. I know I've been trying to, at least with my projects, try to document my thinking or I guess updates every once in a while, because it's just more of an insight into how I think, whether that's a good thing or not. But so the inspiration for this wasn't necessarily like, it was just, again, following the sort of the first few months of learning on my own and following the curriculum. It was one of the first projects was like 2 weeks after you learn JavaScript, then make a JavaScript project. And I thought, I was looking through the sort of example ones, and I saw some really cool ones. Someone did like really, there was some really fascinating data visualizations. There were some like games here and there, and I wasn't sure what to make, but I figured I might as well make something that I like. I like pool. I like playing pool. And I think that, and the more I thought about it, it made sense to do something like this. It was challenging, for sure. Especially the challenges weren't what I expected them to be. I thought I would struggle a lot with the physics parts. But at least when you have like the balls colliding with each other, all that, like I found some formulas online that basically made it a lot easier, and I just kind of took it and attributed the article and went from there. I didn't really have to worry about that collisions like that much. As far as like checking the walls for balances and things like that, that was a little bit more difficult, and I'm pretty sure all I did was just put a line specifically where the pixels of the, I guess, the the image of the pool table and use that, like, oh, if a ball comes into contact with this coordinate, then bounce it off. I definitely don't think it's like a well-made thing, but it works. The one big challenge I had in the end was when I was ready, when I had like everything set up and testing breaks and things like that, and when everything's moving fast, that's where I ran into issues, because based on how I think based on how the ticks work and how I was using Canvas and checking it was like checking every once in a while to see if there's a collision, but because it was moving so fast, it would just skip over the boundaries of the table and then just fly off into infinity. And I really wasn't sure how to do that. It seemed like it slowed down a lot too when it came to breaking, because there was a lot of things. There were a lot of checks going on and a lot of things happening with that. So I went down a rabbit hole of trying to figure out how this all works. At the time, it was way over my head though, and I saw like videos on quad trees, which something to do with like optimizing the four corners, and then kind of like splitting the four corners down the more objects there are in there. I don't know. I didn't end up implementing it. I ended up, I think, tweaking the values or things like that, or just making it the edges thicker or something like that. But basically, it ended up working fine. And then like it's not, and it wasn't something like I no longer had this issue, but I feel like I went about it a sort of not so great way. But I mean overall it was fun to make though, and I don't know, I like pool. I think it's fun to play by myself. And I was proud of it too at the time. I was like barely 2-3 months into learning this stuff and spent a lot of time on this. It was like pretty much the like most time I spent on one thing at the time, but I felt fulfilled by the process, I think, and I definitely learned a lot. And I know I did say I would put a lot of more features in there, but I never went back to it. I think I would like putting in a 9-ball mode. I think that's definitely doable, but I did want to work on more, I guess, more realistic projects and more complicated things, especially like back-end related stuff. So I never ended up going back to this.
Yeah, and that's completely normal. A lot of us start side projects, get to a point, and then life happens and you just never go back.
Yep.
Would you be interested in contributions from people if they looked at the game and they're like, hey, I'd like to implement the 9-ball mode? Would that be something that interests you?
I never considered that. I think so. I think what I would be worried about is just I don't know how to handle being being the authority on this, not like because I don't have I feel like I don't have the sort of knowledge or skills to really handle like making sure that things are okay and double check like code reviews and things like that. But it does sound like a very it really does sound like a good idea, especially because then I can see how people like work on this and see what other people do. Exactly.
I think it would be great to have a little like community around it where you can have a combination of maybe early stage folks and also more senior folks that can all guide each other around things. Like if somebody opens a pull request and you're not sure, you can always ask somebody else, like, can you also just take a look? It looks fine to me, but I just want your opinion on this. So that you don't feel as intimidated, like, oh crap, it's just me. I have to now tell this person whether their code is good. I'm not sure. Like, yeah, I can totally understand that. So, but I think you should be open to that. Maybe it's a nice thing that a community project, you look and say like, hey, who wants to hack away on this? And like everybody can contribute together. I think it'd be a really nice learning experience of a different aspect of programming.
Yeah, I like that idea. Thanks for mentioning that. I'm definitely gonna look into it.
Yeah, for sure, do. And please reach out to me if you need any assistance. I've been in the open source world for quite some time, so happy to help. So another piece in your bio that I really liked and that resonated with me is you ended off, I think, it by saying my dream is to explore as much of this world, i.e. the programming world, as I can and leave an impression of my own one day. What is the impression that you'd like to leave?
So I think that kind of goes back to what I was saying before about how I was just really fascinated by people's work and making work easier, right? The whole like everything's just an abstraction of something else. I think in that sense that like at some point when I'm skilled enough, I would really like to do something similar. I want to make like a tool or even my own language that's like I don't care if it's popular or not. I just think that it would be really cool to make something and have actually like people use it and it'd be helpful and just something that helps other programmers out there. I don't know how I'll get there. I think that's like a really far off long term goal. Or not even a goal. It's like almost like a dream. That's like I feel like that's such a difficult task. But I mean, if other people did it, then one day maybe I can too. I think the important thing is just to kind of like slowly work my way there and keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think I might totally misquote this, but I believe I once heard that a goal is just a dream with a deadline.
That's exactly that's where I was going for. Yeah, dream is probably not, but goals are more set in stone and attainable.
Yeah, but I think we can start with a dream and eventually give it a deadline, and then it turns into a goal.
Right.
So I think it's important to dream.
There's I read about like SMART goals or something like that, where SMART every letter stands for something else. Maybe I'll look it up. It's like how to set goals that'll make you. Do you know what I'm talking about? Or
yeah. I've heard about it.
Yeah,
I've heard about it. Yeah, there's a bunch of these frameworks that you can apply. Again, frameworks are everywhere, and for good reason. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great. I think it's super important to have dreams and goals. It keeps you focused, keeps you moving forward. So yeah, don't let that go. And sometimes you're gonna want to let go, but don't. I've sometimes stopped sooner than I should have. I should have just kept going a little more, and I could have probably pulled something over the finish line. But yeah, it's very common to get to that 80% mark and then feel like, I don't know if I've got the last 20% in me. And that's again where like community comes in, to just give you that motivation to keep going. I think you need this because we are such social creatures, whether we're introverted, introverted or not. We all do need social connection. And I think, especially when you're learning, there's this point where you need somebody to tell you that you're doing well. Like from my perspective, you've improved. Because oftentimes you can't see your own improvements. So it's good to be part of a community, but where you feel comfortable. So you mentioned that you are switching gears and moving into this programming thing full time. You've committed. This is what you're going to be doing. And on LinkedIn, I've also seen that you are open to work. So I'm curious, like a lot of people think about this differently, and how you think about it is how you think about it. That's not what's important to me. That is for you. It's personal. What I'm curious about is when you're looking for work, for a job, do you think about the kind of job you'd like to do or the kind of company that you'd like to work at?
Both, I think. I don't know how to weight it, but I definitely consider both. The job I would like to do, I guess it really depends on what they put in their thing. Like I tend to avoid jobs that make it seem like I'm running off on day one and doing everything on my own and being all independent, because I don't think I can handle that, honestly. I think I need something that has sort of onboarding or even mentorship built in, because I've spent all this time trying to do things on my own that I definitely need a guiding hand in that case. So that's something that I try to look for. And then as for companies, it sort of maybe it depends on a field. I know there's some fields that I would prefer, and then others that I wouldn't necessarily see myself being successful in. I think I would prefer something like healthcare or education, or something that's more I don't know, more ethical. I don't know if that's the right way to put it. I can't see myself doing well in like what's it, like crypto or finance. I think that while I can probably, like, again, depending on the job, maybe I can pull it off, but I just never saw myself as that kind of person. I always felt like I would rather work in something where I feel like what I'm doing is helpful. That's a good way to put it. But again, it's not necessarily something that, like, I don't think I've ever seen a place and just thought, oh no, I would absolutely not work for this. I think I tend to keep an open mind, but I guess I do have priorities.
Yeah, no, for sure. And yeah, for me, it's also important the company I work at. I need to feel some alignment with their values and the work they do. I do want to feel good about the work I do in the end of the day. Because whatever the financial benefit is, that kind of doesn't last forever. At some point, doing work that's meaningful is more important, almost. Well, in my case, I tend to choose things that's more meaningful rather than from the monetary side.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a balance. You have to strike a balance. I think it's a healthy approach to think about both, not to lean too heavily to one side or the other. Talking about stuff you've made, like the billiards game, you also mentioned that you have experience building a tic-tac-toe game in a CLI. Like, how did that come about?
Oh, that I think I put that as a joke, honestly. It was so the what's it like? I think I put I can make full stack applications with multiple tools and this functionality and that, and also I can make tic-tac-toe. I thought it would be funny to put that in as kind of like, oh, I can do this, but I can also do this really easy homework assignment from not easy, but a sort of like week 3 of a CS class kind of thing. Mm-hmm, if that didn't come across as that, then I should probably change it. But I'll just clarify if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I read it like maybe you did make a tic-tac-toe in a CLI, because that'd be something interesting.
Either I did, or I must have, like, I probably was. No, I think I was given like the skeleton of it, and I was just told, all right, well, make this function to check to see if there's a win, kind of thing,
Gotcha.
And then everything else is kind of like already built out. Just fill out the functions. Mm-hmm, so no, mm-hmm. I actually did not build tic-tac-toe. That's a complete lie.
It's fine. We all, like, if you look at job posts, like, if you really are honest with yourself and you look at some of these job posts, it's absolutely, like, there's no way that somebody has all their experience. I remember when React was about 3 years old, and there were like these jobs out there that was requiring 5 years React experience, and everybody was like,
"That's hilarious."
How does that even? Maybe the creators. You're looking for the creators of React. I understand. Okay, because they have 5 years React experience, but nobody else does. So yeah, I just misread it. So nothing to worry about at all. Well, Leo, this was really cool, and I encourage you to, like, keep going with this. From the work I've seen that you've done, you've got the skills, you've got the mindset to do this. So I'm confident you're going to do some great work. In closing, if you could have coffee with someone in tech, who would that be and why?
I think it would be really cool to pick the brain of someone who's done a lot of different things. And I think what I mean by that is, I don't know if this person exists, because I'm sure, like, most people just specialize in one thing or another. But if if there is someone who's like, I don't know, dabbled in I don't know, cybersecurity and maybe even data science or something, or like I'm just naming random topics, but someone who's done like multiple fields, I really want to know. I think that person would have like such unique insights on everything, just like the world of computer science as a whole, or the industry, and different angles. And as far as like there's just so much I could learn from this person. I could learn from their experiences in this, and then how it if there's any similarities between one field or another, and just I don't know, that could go on forever if if this person exists, and if I can get like a infinite amount of time to really like just kind of like interrogate, then I don't know, that I feel like that's a massive learning experience, just based on how it's probably not something that'll happen to most of us. It's a unique life. It's a unique I don't know, forked career path kind of thing. And I guess I've always been curious about every path available, and I ended up here because it's kind of just where I ended up. But I would like to. I guess I would like to entertain the idea of being able to choose between, like, maybe I want to go down this I don't know, systems architecture whatever path, or maybe I would go down like a QA thing, and how would that kind of like how would I see myself doing that? Yeah, I don't know. I think that'd be a cool conversation for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the nice thing about programming and open source and this whole collaborative ecosystem around that is you can try different things. You can dabble in different ideas, maybe by contributing to different types of projects. Have a look at like a project that seems interesting, look if they have any good first issues, and, try one of them and see what there is to learn. Because more than likely, once you start working on this issue, you might have questions, and then you can go back to the maintainers and say, oh, I ran into this thing. What do you think? Should I do this or that or the other? And they'll be, if it's a healthy open source project, of which there are a lot out there, they'll be more than happy to help you, as long as you can show that you've put in some effort as well. It's the whole, ethos on Stack Overflow as well. Like, don't ask me to do your homework. Like, show me that you've tried, and then I'm happy to help you. That applies everywhere. So, I would encourage you to go and have a look on GitHub and GitLab and see if you can find projects that sounds interesting. See if there's a good first issue and give it a try. And see if you can take it through all the way to a pull request that's merged. Because I think that's a way that you can explore stuff and also find things that you didn't know you would like. I've certainly done that. That's how I kind of found my way into the mostly front-end world, is by contributing to various things and really enjoying the front-end part of it.
Yeah, I think it's something that I've always intimidated by this, because I have back before I started doing open source work, I heard stories about people trying to make a contribution and it just being a very negative experience, and that was intimidating. But actually, so far I haven't had any. Like, everything I've worked on, I haven't worked on much, but the things that I have worked on, like you've given me very positive feedback, and I've gotten it from elsewhere too, and I'll just keep going. I think it's a very it's fun, it's challenging, and I learn a lot. And why stop?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I would say, if you run into anything toxic or negative, remember, it's not you, it's them.
Right,
where the problem is not you, it's them. It's all that tells you it's time for me to move on to a different project. This is not where I want to be. And again, exactly. You have the freedom to do that, because you don't owe them anything. They don't owe you anything. You just move on. Just move right along. Thanks, Leo. This was really great. I knew you were a little bit nervous in the beginning, so I hope those nerves have settled down a little bit and that you actually enjoyed this experience. And I wish you all of the very best with your career.
Thank you. I had a lot of fun. I had a lot more fun than I initially felt. And thanks for making me feel comfortable and having a voice in this big world. Appreciate it.
You definitely have a voice. Thanks. Have a great day. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Mycelium Network podcast. If you're not already, please subscribe, star, and leave a review for us in your podcatcher of choice. This helps others find us and helps us make a better podcast for you, our listeners. You can also find and follow us on Twitter at Network Mycelium and join the community on Discord. All the links are available in the show notes.